Good evening and welcome to Social Perspectives. I'm J. Gentile Everett. Recently, the House of Representatives, led by a Democrat and Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, voted along party lines for the third time in U.S. history to impeach a sitting president, setting up a potentially nasty showdown trial in the U.S. Senate, which is led by a Republican Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. I pray that all of us remember the immortal words of Rodney King nearly 30 years ago. Can't we all just get along? We'll be right back.
Sometimes God interrupts the normal course of history and gives us leaders whose gifts and insights are used to transform a generation. We have the privilege of presenting such a leader. He is an accomplished jazz musician, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and beloved senior minister of Mill Branch Baptist Church, J.G. Everett Ministries. Our host, Dr. J. Gentile Everett.
Welcome back. We're in an unusual political zeitgeist. Fortunately, we are honored to have the company of North Carolina State Senator Danny Britt, who's going to shed light on our current political situation. Welcome, Senator Britt. We're glad to have you. Been trying to get you down here, so thank God we got you now.
Thank you for having me, Reverend.
First of all, there are many things we're going to try to cover in this show, but first of all, I just would like for you to tell me what's happening in the Republican Party nowadays.
Well, that question is different from the federal level to the state level.
Okay.
On the federal level, we have all the impeachment hearings and things that are going on. On the state level, in the Republican Party, we have a lot different atmosphere, I feel. And on the state level in politics in general, I think we have a lot different atmosphere. One of the biggest concerns that we have right now is dealing with the issue of activist judges, dealing with the issue of voter ID, for example, that recently a federal court judge has said is unconstitutional, something that overwhelmingly our state citizens said they were in favor of, and now one judge has usurped the power of that entire population. As far as with the Republican Party right now, our focus is on electing judges that share, we believe, to be the values and the views of the predominant amount of people in the state of North Carolina, the same people who voted in favor of the voter ID law. And, as far as what's going on in the Republican Party right now, our goal is to try to get those judges elected, those judges that share the values of the people in North Carolina. But additionally, we're working hard still to try to get a budget passed in the state. We have a few folks that voted with us the first time that didn't vote with us the second time. Part of the reason they did not vote with us the second time was not because that budget changed, but it was because there were things that the governor wanted that was not in that budget, and some of these members were threatened. So they were threatened with primaries, they were threatened with things that would have possibly allow them to be in a tough position or difficult position to be able to return back to the General Assembly and continue doing the good that they do for the citizens in their district.
Okay. Well, tell me this then. Is it an honest assessment for, say, an African American to ask the question, why is the Republican Party predominantly a white, male-dominated and run party? And are any inroads being made to attract any African Americans to that party? Let's understand the national Republican picture is what we see more than in anything else, of course. And when we look at that picture, it appears that there is a kind of a whiteness about that party. It doesn't seem to be open to people of color. Why is that?
I think a lot of that is more due to the history of the party, not the early history of the party, because of course Republicans were the party that
Exactly.
abolished slavery,
Absolutely.
and Democrats were the party that were in favor of slavery.
That's true.
When you talk about the civil rights movement, it was largely Republicans who supported advancement of civil rights, not the Democrats.
Okay.
However, there was a shift at some point between what the Republican Party stood for, what the Democrat Party stood for. But I think that in recent years, that shift has returned back to where the Republican Party is not just a party for the white man, for the white woman, for white America. And there are some inroads being made. There's a movement, and I cannot recall the lady's name who's behind the movement, but there's a movement called Blexit, and it's the Black Exit movement. And it is a statewide movement here in the state of North Carolina of grassroots level African Americans that are trying to get more involved in politics. We've got Mark Robinson, who's running as an African American for lieutenant governor this time. We've got a very good friend of mine, Fred Gore, who's a district court judge, Republican, veteran with over 20 years, running for North Carolina Court of Appeals this time as an African American Republican. I mean, I think that we just recently elected one of the first African American attorney generals, not in this state but in another state. So I think it is shifting. I think that when you look at the unemployment numbers of African Americans having the lowest percentage at unemployment ever, and we look at the fact that we've been in a Republican controlled country, and look at what that impact has had on those numbers. Look at what the Republican Party's belief system is versus where the Democrat Party belief system is now on the national level. And a lot of the African American folks line more up with the Republicans than they do the Democrats. I think it's just something that is just ingrained in the mind of so many African Americans that the Democrat Party is the party for African Americans, the Republican Party is the party for white Americans, and they're not going to help me. And it has been ingrained for generation and generation and generation. I think it's just a cycle that has to be broken. I think it's something where we have to continue to have more of a grassroots effort in the African American community, have more African Americans run for office that are strong candidates that can show folks like Tim Scott down in South Carolina did that, yes, I'm African American, I'm also Republican, and that's okay.
All right, well, all right then. I'm glad you brought that up. What do I do with a red hat that says "Make America Great Again"? And I have to ask questions if I were to look at that. Make it great again. Does that suggest that at some point the greatness was eviscerated from America? Again, does that mean we're pointing to another time when perhaps you had black oppression and black disenfranchisement? And then when you see the Make America Great Again hats and you look at the rallies of our president, we don't see African Americans there. We only see white people there by and large. So how are we to feel like our interests are being addressed if there is a suggestion or there is a hint that one could take that you're saying, let's make America something that it was another time? How do we process this? What would the Republican expect from an African American, for example, to see that hat and then try to decide how am I going to appropriate that, along with something that I picked up. President Trump said on January 11th in a meeting with so-called dreamers, he talked about how why are all these people coming from these S-hole countries here, when most of the people to whom he referred were people coming from Africa, for example. When we start talking about at the border, the people coming in the border, all of these are people of color that we're talking about. Why don't we talk about the border in Canada? There's a Canadian border, and statistics have shown us that you got more of a problem there than we've had at the southern border. Why is it that countries like or places like Norway, all that's welcome all the time, and we hear that. And so I am saying, when I look at the Republican Party, uh, I will admit there's some policies that the Republicans espouse I'm with, I get. There's some things about the Democrat that I like, and there's some things I don't like in both parties. No party is ideal. Let me first put that out there. No party is ideal. But where is the comfort? How would an African American find comfort given these comments, given these rallies, given how I grew up believing you didn't swear in public? And we have swearing in the public discourse and rallies and the like. How are we supposed to feel about that?
Well, I'll tell you, I've only been to one Trump rally. That was the one in Cumberland County. And I went there largely in support of my seatmate, Dan Bishop, who sat next to me, who was going to be serving us if elected down in Robinson County.
Okay.
I did see several African Americans there, several Hispanic Americans there. There was actually some Hispanic Americans there that work at our courthouse here in Robinson County that were there at that rally. And as far as the Make America Great Again reference, I think what we're looking back at mainly is prior to what left so many manufacturing businesses vacant on I-95. Growing up in Southeast North Carolina, having a mother that worked in the plant and having friends and family that worked in plants, and then seeing in the 90s after NAFTA just that huge vacuuming, that sucking sound when NAFTA was passed of all that manufacturing business going away. I would like to think that's the reference that he's meaning whenever he says make America great again, meaning make America great again to where we had those jobs here in America that left after NAFTA. And when you look at what he has done with the new agreement, that even Nancy Pelosi in the House is now praising the Democrats for passing, which was Donald Trump's idea, it is going to be bringing more jobs back. When you look at the tariffs that China puts on anything we send to them that we don't put on things they send to us, and you look at where those negotiations have gone and the additional money that agriculture is going to be getting now in Southeast North Carolina and in other agriculture communities across the country. I mean, I would say that's returning us back to that day where we had a strong economy and we weren't having to borrow from China and these other foreign countries all the time.
What about the deficits, though? The deficits are going out of the roof. The deficits are, we're going to be in more debt than we've ever been in before. I don't think anybody can argue that. The numbers will.
I agree. We got to try to get a handle on that. We got to get a handle on it without increasing taxes more
right.
than what they are now.
See, this is what I find interesting, Senator. I grew up hearing conservatism, and the conservative movement and the conservative members of the Republican Party believed in very small government. I'm sure you've heard these points as well as I have. And now, when I see what would have happened if Barack Obama would have had just sent the country into all of this debt, because we have debt like we've never had before. It's just hard for me to believe. It's really difficult for me to believe because all we heard during those 8 years was talking about debt. We got to get the debt down, one after another. And now why is it now we can rubber stamp debt and go on and it's just okay? I just wonder, are we just either being naive or are we is it bigotry? What is it? There has to be some, how did all these shifts come about?
Well, I think any time that you have one side doing something, it can be the same thing the other side did.
Exactly.
Gerrymandering is a prime example.
Yes.
Okay. Democrats were in control for hundreds of years in the state of North Carolina. Okay. And they maintained that control by drawing lines that favored Democrats.
Okay.
And Phil Berger filed a bill for nonpartisan redistricting. He filed a bill 5 times. Bill never got heard, never got a committee hearing, and of course never made it for a vote. The second, the Democrats lost control. Those same bills that they would not allow to have a vote, they wanted filed themselves, and they wanted them to hear votes, because now that it's somebody else doing it, it's not cool anymore all of a
see.
sudden.
So what,
I mean, I think it's more or less, I think sometimes folks play politics. I think that's just bottom line. Folks play politics.
they play politics, that's
Um,
exactly right. But the people are the ones that suffer
That's right.
from all of these political games and all of these gyrations they go through. And I guess those are some concerns that I have, because everything that happens politically affects somebody. Everything, down to the air people breathe, the water that they drink, politics involved in all of that. And so I guess I'm always concerned about, is there such a thing as honesty and fairness? Or is it just all political now? Is that where we are?
I don't think so. I think a lot of what we see in the media is that, but that's not where we are. I
pray you're right.
I think that, I
Good.
know. I know behind closed doors, I know even when we're in committee rooms out in the open, that there is a lot more of a collegial atmosphere
That's good to hear.
between Democrats and Republicans in Raleigh. We do get along a lot better. We do come to compromise a lot more. If there's a problem at all where compromise doesn't happen, typically that's from the leadership perspectives, not from the folks caught in the middle representing their people. I represent an area, of course, that's almost 70% registered Democrat,
Okay.
but we're socially conservative. We're fiscally conservative. We believe in strong Second Amendment rights.
Oh,
and-
good. I'm glad you
These
mentioned
are
that.
these are things that that matter a lot to folks here.
I know you have been endorsed by the National Rifle Association, and they've been behind you 100% according to my information. That's impressive. So is it that you believe that people should have the right to bear arms, as the Second Amendment suggests? I don't think we have a problem with that. At least I don't. I don't see any issue with people having guns. But what about some common sense regulation with it? I mean, guns in the hands of the mentally ill or the deranged, that's just not safe.
So here's what I'll say on that topic, and just some more background for the listener. So I've got over 20 years in the military. I believe that it's good for folks to have gun safety training. I think we should have gun safety training in the schools so that folks understand how to handle guns safely and understand how to respect the dangers of firearms. But whenever you're talking about gun regulation, gun control, any stricter law that looks into somebody's mental health prior to allowing them to make a purchase of a firearm, anything stricter at all than what we have now, you're punishing people who are purchasing firearms legally, and you're not preventing those folks who mean to do harm and ill will to people. The majority of the crimes that I've dealt with, both as a prosecutor and as a defense lawyer here in Robinson County, the guns were not purchased legally. So any of these protections out there that folks talk about, other than outright gun confiscation, which some Democrats talk about, other than that, you're talking about legal purchase and people that go through the legal channels being the ones that get impacted. Because right now, there's already restrictions on firearms where you have to do a pretty thorough background check, that somebody who means to do harm to people, they're not gonna go through that process anyway.
So you're saying,
And if they have that roadblock in front of them, there are ways for them to get firearms illegally that any law we put on the books is not gonna prevent them from
no, there's no law you're going to be able to come up with.
gaining the firearm.
No law you're going to be able to come up with that's going to take guns away altogether. No doubt about that. I agree with that. I guess my concern is this. You're saying to me, let's say I'm going to use my gun. I'm a law-abiding citizen and I want to have a gun. And I want to use my gun for protection or hunting. So, protect myself and to go hunting. Can you think of any other reason why anybody would need a gun? Can you think of any other reason why anyone else would need a gun?
Some people like to sport shoot.
For recreational
For recreational use.
Okay, so we got three things: recreational use, protection, and we're talking about hunting.
Mhm.
Do I need to have a high capacity magazine to do any of those things? 100 bullets. Do I need a gun? A warlike rifle? Now you're a military guy. Do I need military weapons in my home? Now I'm not from the military.
Right.
And let's say I had the wherewithal to find where I could get one of those guns. Do you think it's just all right for me to have a military weapon in my home?
I think it's okay, yes.
And
I've got military weapons in my home. I've got
maybe
a shotgun.
that's right.
I've got a shotgun in my truck right now that I went rabbit hunting with this morning. That if I take the plug out of that shotgun and I put 6 rounds in it of buckshot and shoot into a crowd, I can do just as much damage with that shotgun as somebody could do with one of these military weapons. And that shotgun I can buy at Walmart.
Okay, so you're saying then, make sure I am clear. You got this shotgun that'll do all these wonderful things. I don't know anything about a shotgun or any of these guns. So you're saying that your shotgun can virtually do the same damage as whatever weapon you use in whatever armed services you're in.
As quick as I can do this right here, that trigger pulls.
Okay.
And if there's nobody in that group that has a gun as well, like the fella in the White Settlement Church there in Texas that saved all those people, if there's not somebody there, then I can reload just about as quick as I can pull the trigger.
So I see why you got the NRA's endorsement. I can certainly understand that. It's just hard for me to imagine why so many guns are necessary. Now I'm a pastor. I'm a peaceful person. I look to do what I can to make the world peaceful. I preach it, I teach it, and I try to live by that. And if somebody is violating my space, I feel I ought to have the right to protect that. I certainly believe that. It's just difficult for me to understand that I need military weaponry to do that. When I'm not trying to destroy. I'm just trying to protect, or I'm trying to hunt. Do I need a high capacity gun to shoot a deer? If I shot the deer all of those minutes, what am I going to do with it? You're not going to eat it. You destroyed the deer. I'm just trying to, I haven't been able to get a rational response why it's necessary to have that. Guns, okay, but high capacity magazines, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Have you ever got out and shot a gun with a high capacity magazine?
No, Lord,
At range.
and I hope
Let
not
me
to.
take you to a range with me sometime to shoot a weapon with a high capacity magazine,
Okay.
and you will understand why people want to have them.
So it's aphrodisiac. It's something that it's a high.
It is something that is enjoyable for some folks to do.
Yeah. Okay. It's enjoyable. Okay. I got another topic I got to move to because we're gonna tell you. You're a very interesting man. I knew you would be. I knew you would be. Sunday alcohol sales. I understand that you voted for Sunday alcohol sales. In 1908, North Carolina banned the sale of alcohol. And this was some 10 years before the establishment and the ratification of the 18th Amendment. So, during that hiatus, liquor was still being sold. Speakeasies, Tiger's Dens, that sort of thing. And the liquor was flowing in from Richmond and other places around whose states did not ban the sale of alcohol. So we have the 18th Amendment coming in and they said, okay, we want a dry country. Well, we know after that, bootlegging got really, really, really big. The Roaring Twenties with the Al Capone era and all of that. We know the importance that alcohol played in all of that money that the crooks made. They made lots and lots of money. But I just want your thoughts, and I want you to think about this. This is North Carolina in the Bible Belt, and you voted to sell alcohol on Sunday. Can you briefly tell me what was your rationale behind that?
So basically what that bill was it dealt with not alcohol sales like at a grocery store
Okay.
or at a gas station. What that would allow is if you have a breakfast place open in a resort community like Bannerell, Boone, down at the beaches, to be able to sell a drink on Sunday morning to folks who are staying in those vacation communities. So not folks that you're going to run into at the grocery store whenever you come home from church. It was a travel and tourism bill. Most folks that travel, they're not at church while they're on vacation.
So they can drink while church is going on. Y'all was just making it possible. This code, I guess, just make it possible for them to drink on Sunday morning. They were not going to be in church anyway. So is this the alternative to church?
No. I mean, it's just we're talking about people that were not going to be at church.
I see.
So, for example, in Robinson County, there are not any restaurants that would be open during those hours anyway.
Okay.
Columbus County, there were no restaurants that would be open during those hours.
But if they were,
right, if they were, which there aren't, and because it's not a vacation community like so many of these other ones are, then they could sell alcohol at a meal,
even on Sunday morning.
even on Sunday morning.
Senator Britt and I have been friends for many years. We've had the time to break bread together, and he even paid for it. So he's a special person, no doubt about that. Even though we differ politically, I am grateful and I am pleased that we are two brothers that love each other in spite of our political differences. We believe in extending the olive branch of civility and camaraderie in all things. That's what we hope in the end will happen to others in our community. I'm J. Gentile Everett. See you the next time on Social Perspectives.